Welcome to this evening of discussion on the Bhagavad Gita. My name is Brahmachari Aditya and I'm speaking from Ananda, Pune on behalf of Naya Swami Jayaji, who is traveling this weekend. As you know, we have been discussing the Bhagavad Gita and we are into the chapter on freedom through inner renunciation, and Jayaji has brought us up to verse 10, and today I will be discussing verse 11, 12 and 13. But before we begin, let's begin with a prayer and some chanting. Please pray with me. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, beloved friend God, beloved Masters, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar Ji, beloved Guru Paramhansa Yogananda Ji, Saints of all religions, we humbly bow before you all. Beloved Masters, we open our hearts and minds to your wisdom and your blessings. Flow into our lives with this deep wisdom and bless us that we utilize these teachings to expand our awareness, to feel your presence, and to bring greater light into this world. We offer ourselves as your channels, as your children. Bless us always. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Welcome once again. So we are going to cover 3 verses this evening over the next 35 minutes. And at the end of the class, in about 5-10 minutes, if you have any questions, please do send them to whoever our coordinators are, and then I'll try my best to answer those questions for you. This is verse 11 in the chapter Freedom Through Inner Renunciation. For purification of the ego, yogis merely work with the body, mind, discrimination and sense organs. They are never attached to them. We'll go verse by verse. The more I read this book, the more I often, give satsangs. I hear other people give satsangs on this book. It amazes me how there are so many ways in this book how the truth is presented, how the teachings are presented, and how one can find encouragement through this way or that. And it is very easy to understand why the Bhagavad Gita has more than Swamiji used to say 800 translations. And because so many people have found a resonation with their level of thinking and such, with their thought, and we bring out that this book helps us do that. But in this verse that we just covered, a very interesting concept, and I think this is one of those verses which are certainly inspiring, but much more instructive. And to the devotee who's aspiring, there is a very direct counsel over here to attain freedom as it is promised through inner renunciation. And often, we live in a time when people shirk away from inner renunciation, or that term I should say. It is actually a very natural way that comes about, inner renunciation. And I can tell you as a doctor, it is something I would call bitter medicine in people's understanding. They think, oh, once again, renunciation. And but renunciation is often thought of as not having any outer possessions, which is true. If we read the life of any saint, often we see they have no attachment practically to anything outwardly. But let's go back a little bit. Where did it begin when it began for them? It began, I think, some feeling of joy. It's like Mahatma Gandhi says, you cannot and should not, leave a lesser desire for a higher one. Likewise, for renunciation, it truly can only happen outwardly once it has happened inwardly. And how does it happen inwardly? When within ourselves we feel joy, we feel happiness, contentment. Sometimes, like one of our friends in the congregation said, when I asked him, why did you join our classes? We were discussing stories of people coming on the path. And he says, oh, another person who is a Kriyaban now, I worked in his same office, and through the glass chamber, sometimes I just saw him smiling when nobody was there in this cabin. And he was just sitting by himself. He was happy without any reason. And that when you're happy, when you're full with that inner satisfaction, actually that is energy. When it moves up, everything that comes out from there, creativity, our spoken word, our gestures, our renunciation, which is not wanting to collect unnecessary necessities, Master used to say. We simplify our life. And it is actually, so outer renunciation is a reflection of inner renunciation. But let's come back to this verse. The verse says that a yogi remaining non-attached to his body, to his mind, his discrimination, or we can say the intellect, and to the feelings or the senses, remains in perpetual freedom, can attain freedom. And it's very interesting, the words Krishna uses is, he uses these things. And Swami Kriyanandaji explains later that one might say it's like working with a hammer. You're trying to accomplish something, you have an understanding, the work needs to be done, you're the person who knows it, but what do you need to finish the work? You need a hammer and you need a nail. So you're going about hammering the nail with the hammer and you do a decent job. So what's happening over there? The hammer has accomplished it. But Swami says, do you like to be called a good hammer? Do you like to, yes, God is trying to finish that work in creation. Creation is just too big. If, we are still at that stage where we are doubting God, of course it cannot be forced upon our thinking, but it's worthwhile to consider that there are, Swamiji used to say, 100 billion stars in our one galaxy. And now it has been found that there are at least 100 billion such galaxies. And once somebody came to Paramahansa Yogananda ji and he says, sir, I like what you're saying. I want to believe in God, but show me a miracle. And Master says, well, how can I help you? And he says, just make anything fly in the air and I'll be converted. And Master, as much as he could have, he says, please answer a few questions for me. And to make the really long story short, he asked the person where they were in increasingly greater definitions. So the answers were Chicago, America, and he told Master, you've just come from India, and India, all this is part of Earth, and the Earth is part of the solar system. And he started giving this class on astronomy till Master asked him to pause, and he says, now tell me, where are all these planets, stars, and the solar system? What is it resting on? And the person got his answer, it's all floating. And that's the greatest miracle. And so here Krishna is saying that God realization can be found because this world is God's Leela. He created it for his entertainment. He made it also so that we were created to uniquely become one with him. And Master says when we find God, we become God. To become expanded, you might say, in our awareness. Now, certainly it was without our choice that we were created. But it is no point arguing, with God. It says in the Bhagavad Gita, more or less in the beginning, Krishna says, to the non-carping spirit, I reveal myself. That once we understand, it is very unfortunate, of course, to not know that there is a meaning in life. But Master says at that time you're not bothered about meaning. Once you really sincerely ask the question, you get the answer. Oh yes, there is meaning. Oh yes, there is a direction. It can be up or down. And as we go up, you might say Godwards, our wisdom starts developing. The old memory of the soul starts dawning, and we start realizing this is expansive, this is nice, this is joyful. There is something in me which is changing. As a doctor, I can also tell you something which I try to explain to people since I was converted by that understanding. Often we think that as we age in life, especially after 50s, 60s and such, oh my God, a terrible time is going to come. Well, the body has to go. That is the way of nature. But having seen Swami Kriyananda and many other saints and sages, I can now say that just the way they, you might say, ripen, it is the climax of life. Actually, I was recently in America, and one of the persons who is working in the medical sector, he told me that doctors have now, holistic science has come to now develop the new definition of the ripening of our health considering that mental, physical, emotional health, all together. And they have said it happens, believe it or not, at the age of 60. That at that age, most people are, they've lived through life, they've overcome the challenges, they have understood what are the priorities in life, what are the things that truly matter. And if they are, and such people often are intelligent, they've taken care of their health, their body, they are very happy and they are touching a new high. This is a new, and I was very happy to know this, because it is, it's not surprising now that people are feeling young at heart. World over, it's a universal phenomenon. Nobody's just feeling, old anymore, which is such a nice thing. Coming back to the suggestions in that verse, that we are spirit, which Yogananda ji said has been compacted or crystallized by Divine Mother, by God, and we have been given the body, we have the mind, we have been given the intellect that works through the mind, and then we have been given the senses which work through the body, or you might say the finer feelings. And it is very important to know this, because our degree of awareness depends on how we use our memory, soul memory, and our willpower to, through these 4 channels, to expand our awareness. So let's consider this. Yogananda ji said, we are not this body, but we are responsible for this body. The way we will act, the way we will eat, the way we treat it will determine how the body becomes. So what kind of body do you want? Well, I think all of us want a healthy body. We want a body which is helping us to do what we want to do. There is the mental component, the mind, which I'll come to. But often I see an imbalance. People are so driven by their mind, or sometimes their heart's desires, that their feelings, that the body cannot keep up. What is the result? Heart failure. How unfortunate, but how common? Hypertension. How common? Because there's an imbalance. Well, yes, we have the body, we should take care of it. We should understand and watch it every evening from just a step back. As if, let's say, you would watch your neighbor or your very good friend. Won't you give them a counsel if you see them tired? Won't you give them a counsel if you saw they were overworking? And here it is, we give everybody the counsel. And when it comes to our own body, we ignore it. We go with likes and dislikes about food, exercise, about habits, which are not helping us. They're not bringing greater vitality into our body. So, and Master says, a body can be an impediment when we want to go deeper, beyond the mind, beyond the body. He says, beyond the body is the first step. People too much, they in spirituality, they think, oh, this body is a delusion. I'm not interested in it. Well, when it starts aching, the delusion becomes very real. And so we should start taking care of the body and treat it with respect and impersonally though. Likewise, let's come to the mind. Mind, Yogananda ji said, has been given to us so that we understand where are we, what are we supposed to do, what's happening. We register it without making any notes, you might say, or inferences. But then we have the intelligence, which is such a beautiful gift. And God wants us to use it. And your intelligence, or I should say the intelligence that is going to flow through your form, through your consciousness, is unique. So we use that through our skills, through our knowledge, through our understanding. And what kind of understanding? Once again, you see, children nowadays are taught so many facts, taught how to excel in life. But they just don't understand to what end is the mind should be used. Not to cram facts. A computer can do that so much better, and everybody can carry a computer if they want facts. But the mind is to use our body, our factory, to run. Am I doing good? What are the things I should read? What effect do they have on me? Do they bring me peace? Do I understand other people's reality more? Am I anywhere close to the cosmic intelligence? And when we use our intelligence in that manner, then you see, we don't have to become fanatic about this I will read, this I will not. Very quickly, Swamiji had such intuition, he says he could see sometimes light around a book. At least that's the answer he wrote in college, that this book is very good because it has a white light around it. So-and-so has a blue light around it. Well, I don't see lights. Many of us may not see lights. But we all do get a feel. After a while, when you read something, you get a feel this is good or am I just passing time? Once again, idle minds do that. Come out of idleness. Come out of what is called tamasic nature. Be in energetic states if we want to attain really high cosmic energy. So using our intelligence. Actually, intelligence has a beautiful name, Vivek. And actually, I had once had a friend who had that name. And he once went to an ashram where he told me beautiful chanting was happening. And he had actually gone there to rescue one of his distant relatives who had joined the ashram. So when they went there, chanting was happening and he sat there, and later he told me it was beautiful. I said, what were they chanting? He said, oh, I didn't pay attention. You see, I ran from that place very soon after they started chanting because I thought I would get drawn into it also. And I said, you're intelligent, why would you get drawn? And you yourself told me you were enjoying it. So, you see, if we are enjoying it, if it's helping us, discrimination, Vivek is not judging. Discrimination means to see, this is beneficial, I will go with this wave of understanding, I will go deeper into it. And this is not helping me, this is causing stagnation. I choose not to go in that direction. And this is also the basis of our willpower. Finally, we come to the senses. And the senses were again given to us. Yogananda ji said, so we could taste and get a glimpse of the much, much greater tastes awaiting us. Once he told Swami Kriyananda ji, who was very fond of sweets, he told him, God could come to a devotee as 1,000 sweet tastes crushed in one. And Swamiji says that was very deep inspiration and motivation for me to, march on the spiritual path, that such joy could be found. And that because you see, we have the senses through which we taste. But what happens in old age again? People who have used the senses, and often, if you don't know what to do, we can err on the side of abusing the senses, going too much into them. The sense, like a bulb, its fuse goes out and it doesn't help us anymore. But if we can utilize the sense, treat it once again as a gift, as something which can run well, when we take care of it, when we respect it, hearing, our vision, our voice, smell, taste, these things are wonderful tools to feel, appreciate, but also to internalize that energy and then, gradually move from there. And so as devotees, I think this one verse alone has so much benefit. Swami Kriyananda further elaborates. He says, what are the ways in which we can take care of these 4 aspects of consciousness? What is consciousness? In the highest form, Swamiji says it is absolute, it is God. But when it comes down in different forms, it's the mind, the intelligence, the ego, and the feeling. And the ego also, it can be, we get so possessed about, oh, this is my ego, and how did you say this to me? We all go through that. But I remember one time when I was enjoying this freedom from ego, and somebody misunderstood what I was asking, and he started, shouting at me. This was an auto rickshaw driver, and my sisters were with me, and one of my sisters says, how can you speak like this? You didn't even hear what he said. And I just said, it was just like he was shouting, but it was not affecting me. And I said, relax. I can see it was a misunderstanding. That's the benefit of going one step back from our own ego, because it is possible to detach it. Right here in Pune, Mahatma Gandhi was operated for appendicitis. You have to open the stomach to reach the appendix. And on that evening of his surgery, Yogananda ji writes this story in autobiography that, and later I actually studied about it because it happened right here. It seems the power went off and then the anesthetist was not able to come. This is the 1930s. So what happened? Gandhiji said, what are we waiting for? He asked the surgeon. And he says, sir, we are waiting for the anesthetist to come. And he says, you see, tomorrow I have a very important meeting. Why don't you start anyway? And then they went through the surgery and Gandhiji, it seems, didn't feel the pain at all. Actually, he was discussing the points of the meeting next day with his secretary, Mahadev Desai. And Master says that was because he had attained the power to focus or put his mind or the mind where he wanted to and withdraw it from where he wanted to. If Gandhiji, if one person could do it, we all can do it. He didn't see the mind as his mind. He saw it as He was a custodian of that mind. He had to use it for the country. He had to use it for his expanding awareness. And when we are selfless to that degree, you might say that God will give us that gift, that here you go. Do as you feel with it. Withdraw it when you feel pain. Engage it when you want to do creative things. What a beautiful gift. Sri Yukteswar demonstrated it to our Guruji when he was young. There were mosquitoes in the ashram. And Sri Yukteswar, one night, Master said he was not affected by those mosquitoes. Why? He says, because my Guru had the power to withdraw his mind from anything, mosquito bites, or he could affect the mosquito's consciousness so that they would not bite him. What is that power? That power is within us. It is the power of detachment, of understanding that yes, we'd like to live in this world. You see, that's why Master said, this life was given to us not to die an untimely death. That's not his word, but I mentioned that as a doctor. It was given to us for our entertainment and education, Master said. Studying ourselves is no small education. It is a very long process. The saints, wise ones, the gurus, the wise minds that have written the books, they help us. The stories of the saints, they inspire us with similar potential. And likewise, Anand Mahima, they said about her, Master repeatedly said that every now and then after worldly interaction, she would withdraw into herself and come out refreshed. We all do that in meditation. Actually, everybody does it during sleep. But we can also do it through prayer. We can raise this energy through chanting, through yoga postures, through energization exercises, of course through meditation. And when we feel the energy in the spine, with such reverence of these realities within ourselves, offering that energy up through Kriya Yoga, Om techniques, such beautiful techniques to tune into our greater reality. So let's see how, as we march on, we can use these tools. I'd like to come to the next verse for this evening, which is, the God-united yogi, relinquishing attachment to the fruits of action, attains unshakable inner peace. That person, however, who does not direct his energies upward toward union with God is ruled by desire. Attached to the fruits of action, he lives in perpetual bondage. And isn't that something we see in the world all the time? Isn't that something which is even told to us to do? Oh, how else will you live? Well, Master says, I don't live by anybody's help, I live by God's assistance. And likewise, what's wrong with a desire? We may think, oh, if I don't have a desire, I'll become a lazy bum. As Swamiji once defined some people who are lazy in their spirituality. No, you won't become a bum. When we are having a desire, actually it means that we somewhere are telling ourselves, this cannot happen to me unless I desire it, or I reach out for it, or I go for it. It will not come to me if I am calm. Whereas it is not true. If a desire disturbs our heart's feelings, and it disturbs our emotions, and it will lead to a fulfillment, but then it will lead to what is called, a downside. It will lead to trough, and we will have to go through that also. And life is based on duality. So here it is being said that true unshakable peace is attained by those who do not have desires, which is the other way of saying who do what is necessary to do, and they're not propelled or impelled to act. But once again, remember, don't feel too bad, because as our soul is progressing, we come with those samskars. But for those who are really seeking peace, we should understand that if I haven't found it this far, if my neighbor who I see hasn't found it this far, and I literally questioned everybody I had encountered in my life, when I saw the example of Swami Kriyananda, I said, well, something needs to be changed in my approach of life, of setting goals in front of me, of feeling the accomplishment in, first of all, doing the right thing. Secondarily, if at all, with the fruits of that action. And it is not easy, but this is also what the Gita says we should do every evening. Be the spiritual path, as joy-giving, as lovely as it is not a path for cowards. It is not for those who lack energy. It is not for, Master says, foolish people. He says foolish people will never be able to find God. Because this is a path which requires our cooperation, our integration in God's flow and in His scheme of things. So let's keep that in mind. And the final verse for this evening. When once the embodied soul has controlled the senses and mentally releasing every attachment to activity, remains blissful and secure in the city of 9 gates, the physical body, he himself no longer acts, nor does he impose action on others or on his outer senses. I like it how beautifully Swami Kriyananda says that we do not impose action on our senses, because that's what we do, and very soon, if we are in that outward flow of overeating, let's say, we don't even realize that we are pushing ourselves, actually, because when you made a habit of something, and everything is a flow of energy. When we made a habit of that, we are impelled to act in that way. We are impelled to walk in that way. I remember once when I was having an evening walk with one of my relatives as a child, he asked me, why are you rubbing your soul on the road? And I said, oh, I'm sorry, but I was not thinking about it. And then after that, I just started thinking about it. And once I read in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna was telling Arjuna, you will know a yogi by the way he walks, by the way he talks. And I said, oh my goodness, that was a life lesson I got that evening. That am I intentional in am I guiding my foot, or is my foot just going just about anywhere? Often when this is a fun thing, when we start living like this, believe it or not, if you want to help people, this is a wonderful way. You don't have to tell them these philosophies, one has to grow into it. But you can, small things, like telling me how to walk, really changed my posture, probably for life. But what I was saying, when people in the hospital, they come sometimes with a sprain, I often ask them, yes, if you slip, that's another matter. But many times people say, oh, I didn't look at the step. Oh, I was not looking down. Or sometimes, when somebody gets drunk and they dance. Once I had 2 patients from the same party in the night who fell on the dance floor, twisted their ankle because they were drunk excessively. And this is what happens. Your body, you lose control on the body. You don't know where you are. You don't know what you should be doing. And your mind is somewhere, your body goes somewhere, and your ankle goes off. So paying attention on those things, that we have been given this body of 9 gates. And you see, again, if we have developed attachment to the body, meditation, you have to give yourself some time. When we have, and that's why the spiritual path, for no compulsion, is understood by the sincere seekers to be a path for life. That how much time yes, you get the teachings on a weekend, but it's a lifetime of practice. Actually, lifetimes, Krishna says, that's how he has put the goal in this creation into motion. And so as we work, as we do our daily activity, as we think, as we move into this world, remember, the only thing that will bring you happiness is your mastery, self-mastery. Mix with those people who encourage that. Make those people your friends who you look up to. Read those books. And once I read about somebody who read Autobiography of a Yogi as a person in his 20s and never again read any other book. He says, that book had it all that I was looking for in life. That read those things which bring happiness, joy to you. My greatest discovery, which I believe is a universal phenomena for every devotee, when I read Autobiography of a Yogi, was the potential it described that every soul which has come in the body has to someday realize, but it has to be realized with their cooperation. And as we go in this world, as we walk in this world, let us never become of the world. And if we feel, which many of us are in the world, it's tough for us, let's gather our forces inwardly, let's make a supportive environment outwardly in our mind, and let's move under the grace of God and Gurus as we march ahead. Joy to you.